you brought up something that obviously is was a big thing for me with what the judges are trying to do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I can talk a lot about it. I'll tell you everything you want to know about it. So give me 1 second. Let me take a drink of this here real quick.
You're fine.
All right. So the judges, let me preface this by giving you a little history lesson. Last year, we have an employee of the county who's been with us a long time, who's very valued. In fact, she's overvalued. She has become so integral to the county. She's kind of backed us in a corner. They've got us in a position where almost we can't be without her, right? And I blame us, the county, for putting ourselves in that position where we're that dependent on one employee. We should never be that dependent on one employee. Well, anyway, this employee wanted a significant raise last year. I think they wanted to go from 45 or 50 grand to about 80 grand. And the council was against it. So we're not going to do it. And the judges had come in. Judge Wolf made the presentation, and they said, this employee is so valued. They're so worth it. Well, what we said, we negotiated. People don't know this, but we as a council, we give the 5 circuit judges each a $5,000 stipend, right? Total $25,000. Yes. And you cannot, once we've given it to them, we can never reduce that without their permission. And the only time we can take it away is when a judge retires. Okay.
And real quick on that. That's 5,000. So once you give it to them, that's 5,000 every year, no matter what happens with the budget. You give it 5,000 off the top. It's got to go to them. And just so people know, judges aren't 4-year terms; they're 6-year terms. So when you elect a judge and they're there for 6 years before they're up for re-election again.
That's correct.
Okay. And, sorry. Go on from there. I just want to make sure people knew that.
And typically, even more than 6 years. A lot of our judges got 20 years experience. Really, they're going to be there a while. And so we said, I tell you what, if you believe so strongly in this employee, put some skin in the game. You forfeit half of your $5,000 stipend, and we as a council will kick in $5 grand. So at the time, one of the judges had retired. So there were only 4 judges. They each kicked in half of their stipend, so $2,500 each, for a total of $10,000. The council kicked in $5,000. So that's a $15,000 stipend that we put in addition to that employee's salary. The reason we did it that way, we did not want to just increase that employee's salary, because typically what happens in government, 5 years down the road, 10 years, when all of us council members are gone, that employee leaves, and then the person who replaced them automatically picks up where they left off, and that's their salary. So we put it in a separate line item so we could control it a little bit. That was the compromise. Well, everybody lost their minds about that. People in county government, 500 county employees, people were absolutely pissed. And I got more calls over that. Than the mail guy, not doing any work all day. But that's a whole other story. But I got a ton of calls over this, and it is what it is. This person, we give them the money. Well, you fast forward to this year, right? And Prosecutor Hoffman comes through, and he all of a sudden wants raises for his deputy prosecutors. He even said in his briefing to us, he compared the fact that this employee was getting $70,000. That was the same amount or very similar amount to what his deputy prosecutors, who have 4-year degrees plus a law degree, were earning, right? So they were all offended by this. And, you couldn't argue with them. My argument was, though, that this isn't the time to do pay raises. We do that during a budget meeting. Well, I voted against it. I lost that vote. The rest of the council give them the pay raises. Well, now here we are at a budget meeting. Well, so this is what happens. We're in the pre-budget meeting on Tuesday. Judge Wolf's retiring. So instead, Judge Cannon gets up to talk. And he goes on, man, he talked for a while. He goes on and on and on.
So just real quick so people know, basically in Delaware County, we've got 5 judges. Like in Randolph County, there are 2 judges. And basically when you have judges like that, what they do is they elect a presiding judge who is kind of like the president of all the judges. and he's like, he or she's the one that goes in and deals with the council and deals with commissioners on things. So it was Wolf for a couple of years, I believe. I know that Dowling's been it before, but now it's Cannon. So Cannon came in to speak on behalf of all of the judges to you guys.
Yes, that is correct. And I'm glad you made that you distinguished that, because that is accurate. So he's there on behalf of the 5 judges. Now, Deputy Prosecutor, I always can't say his name right, Maywar, I believe, Doug Maywar, he got sworn in as a judge today. So he wasn't a judge on Tuesday when we had the meeting, but he's a judge now. So he was at the council meeting. He's sitting in the back. So Judge Cannon's there representing all 5 of them. And they've taken a vote. And so he says, before we get into the court's budget, I'd like to say some things. Well, he goes on this like 40-minute rip talking about everything. And I think he kind of lost some of the council members, definitely lost people in the audience. Hell, I don't know what I was thinking about, but he was going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden I heard him say, he brought up this court administrator. And he was irritated at the criticism this employee received last year from fellow employees, county employees, who were irritated at this person making this much money. And I'm telling you, when I say irritated, people you wouldn't believe were irritated. All right. It wasn't just the low people. They were all mad, everybody. Yeah. And he said he thought it was embarrassing that this person had to go through that. And I agree with that to some extent. So he goes on, and he says, this year, we have submitted a budget. Last year we cut our stipend to $2,500 each, and Judge Maywar's stipend, we took that out, right? Because he wasn't a judge then. That's the only time you could take that $5,000 away. So we took advantage of a judge retiring. We eliminated that $5,000. The plan was each time a judge retires, we'll eliminate it, and eventually we'll get to the point where all of those stipends are gone, right?
Yeah.
So Judge Cannon starts talking, and he says, we want our entire $5,000 stipends back. We also want the $5,000 stipend for Judge Maywar. And in addition to that, we want this court administrator salary to be $80,000. For context, that salary is currently, now again, I don't have my book here, so I'm going off the top of my head. I think it's around $45,000 without those stipends. Maybe $50,000. I can't remember. Somewhere, it's around $50,000. Call it that. They want $80,000. It's like a 47% increase. And again, people are still kind of lost at this point, right? Because he's been going on for a minute. And he goes, and by the way, there is a new state legislator passed a law. They said that you can increase your local lit tax to pay for court administrators. So you have the means to do it. In addition to that, we as judges can order the salary of our court administrator and put it at the amount we feel is necessary. And we have taken a vote, and we have decided as the 5 judges that we are going to order you as a county council to pay our administrator $80,000 starting January 1st. And then he started to go into something else. And again, people are just kind of zoned out. And I stopped. I said, excuse me, Judge.
Like he was just, I think that was the plan. They're like, go in there and bore them to sleep for 30 minutes, slide that in, and then go back to talking.
Yeah, he tried to lullaby us to sleep a little bit, and I said, "Did I just hear you say that you have the authority to order us to pay this employee $80,000, and you are going to enforce that?" And he said, "Yes, we are. We are going to issue an order. We will have it available to the council next week before the budget meetings start." I believe it was around that time. Now everybody's paying attention, listening. I believe Council President Piper spoke up and said, "So there's no negotiating," in the form of a question. And the judge looked at her stone face and said, "No negotiating." And then, without skipping a beat, it goes, "But we would also like for you guys to give us those stipends back." That's totally in your control. So I'm going to strong arm you and order you to pay this person 80 grand. But I want you to be nice to us and give us those $5,000 stipends back. That's how kind of I interpret it. So I kind of spoke up again and I said, I got to be honest with you, Your Honor. You're suggesting pay this $80,000. You're obviously going to order it because we're not going to agree to it. You're going to have to order it. And second, you're suggesting that we raise taxes to do it. And I said, I'm only speaking for myself. I can't speak for the other council members, but there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to agree to raise taxes. There's no way I'm going to raise taxes. I'm trying to get our local income tax lowered or in our property taxes. That's my goal this year, to lower the income tax, the property tax, the wheel tax. There's not a chance in hell I'm going to vote to increase the lit tax. There's just no way. And he said, that's your right to do that, Councilman Webb. But I just wanted to make you aware that you have that option and the means, the mechanism necessary to pay this employee this amount of money. So, yeah, that was the truth bomb of the day. We're going to be forced and ordered to pay $80,000 to an employee. That's almost double. That's almost double that salary. Now, let me put this in context. Currently, our deputy prosecutors with a law degree, 4-year college degree, are making $85,000. We don't have any department heads who make that amount. We don't have any elected officials that make that amount, with the exception of the sheriff and the prosecutor. This person doesn't supervise anyone. They're not a department head. They don't supervise anyone. They're literally one person who these judges have determined they can't live without, and they're willing to burn the house down in order us to pay them $80,000 from 45.
And how frequently does this person work? How, like regular 40-hour week or?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people don't realize this. So if you work at like 911 or the county highway department, or if you work for like the correctional officer or a sheriff's deputy, your salary, we pay everybody based off of a salary. And then we break that down off of, an hourly rate, right? So if you're one of those positions I just named, you work at least 40 hours a week. Well, there's several people in county government years ago when they couldn't afford to give people raises. Somehow they need.
Well, that's
there
fun.
You are. There, we're back now.
There you go.
Good? That's okay. So what I was saying is, a lot of people don't realize this, but many people in the county building and in county government, the recorders, the treasurers, these folks, they only work, and in the courts, they work 32 and a half hours a week, right? So
right.
You got one guy working 40 hours, and that's what his salary is based on. And you got another person working 32 and a half hours. Now, if you break down that $80,000 on a 40-hour or a 32 and a half hour week, it's like $47 an hour for a government employee, which is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Nobody in their right mind thinks it's I don't want to take away from the employee. The employee's a great employee and a great person, but that's a ridiculous number. It just is.
Yeah, so that's what I want to say. This I've known this person for many years. She's a wonderful person, and look, I agree with the judges. I don't think that the various department heads or other employees should have been giving her grief last year during this process. That's something that if people wanted to talk to you guys about, or people wanted to talk to the judges about, that's one thing. But to give her grief is kind of ridiculous. The other thing about that is, I remember Cannon had problems with this last year. I remember he said something about this last year. When they came in, I came to that meeting, and when people had said something about the about all of that, like the meeting before, he got up and spoke. I don't know if you remember that or not, but he got up and kind of admonished all of the employees. Then
he did. Yep.
And so that I remember that. Well, then when you said that this happened this go around, look, I mean, she's a valuable. Look, this is who you want to be in a corporation, right? You want to make them think that they cannot function without you. So, to her credit, good on her, I guess. But
well, I asked
your job. Go ahead.
Well, I asked at that moment. I said, "Well, if you're going to issue this order, who's to say?" Because last year she threatened us, or the employee threatened us to leave for a better paying job. And I said, "Okay, if you give this order for 80 grand and this person leaves, then what? Do we have the authority to reduce?" I looked at our council attorney and I said, "Do we have the authority to reduce this dollar amount, the salary?" And the council attorney said, "If the judges do the order, the judges would have to reduce it." So I asked the judge, "What do you say to that?" And he looked at the employee and he said, "Well, you're not going anywhere, are you?" The employee said, "No, I'm not going anywhere." And then and I said, but let's just say if something happens out of their control, like God forbid they get sick or they can't work. Eventually, he got to the point where he said, if something happened, and we order this, and then this employee left, we would have an emergency hearing and we would adjust that salary. But they're still not clear on adjust it to what. Adjust it $5 grand down. What are you adjusting it to? So I think it's a real slippery slope. I don't like it. I sure as hell don't like being strong armed. Last year in the council meeting when this was brought up, council member Ron Quakenbush brought it up when we were debating. We were arguing back and forth. It got pretty hot. And he said, "Well, Councilman Webb, the judge can just order this."
Yep.
And I said, "Let them order it." I said, "Then call their bluff, make them do it. Let them explain to the constituents of Delaware County why they sued Delaware County, because I'm not going to just agree to do it." And we ended up negotiating, and it didn't come to that. But Council Member Quakenbush, to his credit, did bring it up last year that the judges have the authority to do this. And they must have paid attention because this year they're doing it. And my understanding is, I think we're going to force them to do it. I'm only speaking for myself, but I didn't get the feeling that anyone was going to voluntarily change their salary on their own. I think if it happens, it's going to have to come from an order. It's definitely going to have to come from an order for my vote. I'm not voting for it, flat out.